Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Talking Insomnia episode where I believe actually for the first time in the history of the channel, we have a return guest, which is Malena. Welcome back.
Hi, Daniel. How are you doing?
Very, very good. And yes, we started talking about just before this. You've been on before, and that was a couple of months ago. How are things going?
So a couple months ago when I'm gonna say like 5 months ago because I just went back, like I was telling you, like to check on the comment I had made. Um I was like in my second. I had like the first big one, like the first like huge big one that I didn't sleep for like 3 days. And I was kind of like in a point where I was like, I have to do something about my sleeping, There's there has to be another way, because when I was telling you, when I went to the doctor, I didn't know at this point that my sleeping issues were psychological. I always had in mind that there is something tweaked. My hormones were off, or, some vitamins that I was missing. And it's just kind of like, I needed to figure out what was going on, because when I had went to the doctors, um, they never give you like other, you know, um, options as to for insomnia. They just basically tell you, oh, here's a sleep study, or here's these pills. There's no CBTI. There's no conversation about that.
Yeah.
And when I had finished like my second round of like bad insomnia, like I had like a couple days where I barely slept, like it was like 2 hours. I was like, I have to do something about this. There has to be another way, and
And
that's when I
actually,
googled.
Malena, sorry to interrupt you, but I just realized for people tuning in here, it would be great if just, up until that point, just a quick reminder, like how long had you had trouble sleeping for up until, was it 5 months you said?
N- um no, 5 months ago is when I found you, but
Yeah,
before
exactly.
that,
Okay.
yeah, before that, I had trouble sleeping for 7 months.
Got it.
But those 7 months when my insomnia first started, it was kind of like, I don't know exactly what triggered it, but I had an idea. But I remember I had a couple nights when my insomnia first started that I didn't sleep so well, and I kind of started thinking about it. Oh, like what? Now, I wonder why, I didn't sleep good. I have to think about, I was thinking about, I was like, was it, drinking too much coffee, or, whatever the case is. And then I forgot about it very easily. So the next night I fell asleep fine, but then it kept coming back, you know, those nights where I didn't have good sleep and I kept thinking about it. And then I had the first very big one, which was 3 days that I didn't sleep at all. Like I didn't sleep like 1 hour, what was, I believe, didn't sleep at all. And since then, when that happened, I went to the doctor, and they, I told them about my problem. I didn't sleep. I haven't slept for 3 days. And they're like, oh, are you stressed out? So and so. And I told them, well, I have little concerns, but nothing big. What's causing me insomnia is my insomnia.
Yep.
Um, and so therefore she just said, here's Ambien, take this and you'll be fine. And I said, okay, went home, took the Ambien, and there's something not good sitting with me with taking the Ambien. And after, I started sleeping better for a little bit, but then I relapsed again, and you know, um, I started sleeping bad again. And then that's when I was like, there has to be another way. There has to be something else that I'm missing, or that they're not telling me. And for me, taking medication was so upsetting to me. So I was like, I have to figure something out. So that's when I went on YouTube and I found you. And this was like 5 months
Yeah,
ago.
exactly. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, and then you found me, and I think pretty quickly after you found the channel, we had that you were a podcast guest, right? So take us from there and onwards.
Okay. From there, I just want to start by saying that I know what it is, you know, to feel lonely and for it to feel dark, you know, and how insomnia makes you feel like you're the only one, you know, that's out there that's suffering from it, or you're the only one that has like this condition that's hormonal, or that's, you know, some low vitamins or something like that. You know, I truly believe now that, you know, insomnia is psychological, you know, when it's ongoing, and when it's in, and when it's keeps reoccurring after so many times you've been to the doctors, it has to be psychological, right? And so when you, the way you figure that out is by how I did on here, you know. It might sound repetitive because I've learned so much from you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So my learning comes like this, you know. You have to identify yourself with other viewers and other people that are going through the same thing, you know. You have to kind of put yourself in that position and be like, hey, I heard this person had racing thoughts, you know, palpitations, and, you know, hot nights, you know, hot sweats, you know. And you kind of have to look at yourself and be like, am I that person, you know? um because if once you identify yourself, there's no more mystery, you know. You have a starting point, and once you have the starting point, you could go on from there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to, you know, just to kind of like double down on this one for everyone listening here, the brain always wants to like keep you safe, so it's always going to try to tell you that, oh no, you're different because you don't have that or you have this, and then it keeps you in this like state of like trying to figure out what's going on with me. But when you do like you say, you're like, oh wait a minute, actually I am just like that other person, I also have racing thoughts, I also have palpitations, then there's less mysteries, and then you're like, okay, now I think I can figure it out. So did that happen kind of, that's started happening to you? You started thinking those lines some 5 months ago or so, or?
Yeah, you know, 5 months ago, when I found your channel, I started looking at, I mean, I seen your channel, right? One of the first videos, and I was like, man, this guy know what he just sounds smart, you know? He knows what he's talking about. So when I listened to you, I was like, he has to have the answer. There it has to be, you know, it has to be psychological. So I went back to your early videos and I literally watched every single video, you know. And I was just so obsessed with learning about my insomnia, that I got so much confident in not fixing the problem, right? Because it's not something that you can control, but like just not having so much fear about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when that happened, I just watched all the videos of like all your podcasts, and I just started to be like, I just started to identify myself with those people and be like, you know what, that's me, that's me, that's me, you know. So soon after that, I decided that I was gonna, I remember one of your first videos, one of your early videos, you had mentioned that nothing can produce sleep, you know. And at bedtime, I had a ritual. I was taking magnesium, melatonin, you know, tea. That same night, after watching your video, I didn't take a single thing. And guess what? I slept just fine, you know. I slept
Amazing.
great, actually, you know. And for me, after that night, it was like a huge breaking point. It was a huge breaking point, because before then I you know, I believe that nothing can, you know, I had to take this, because if I don't take this, then I'm not going to sleep the 2 hours that I sleep, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, or I'm not going to sleep the 3 hours that I sleep,
Yeah.
which was not great, you know. um but that night, that after I watched your video, I'm like, he's right, you know. And I took you know, it took a lot of courage for me, but that same night I just stopped everything and I slept just fine, you know. And however, you know, my sleep was still kind of in a like yo-yo stage, where I slept good one day and then the other not. So I decided to start like CBTI from there, you know. And because I realized that, when I don't have at that time, I didn't have like a regular time where I woke up, I always wanted to compensate for the day of bad night sleep,
Yeah.
so so when I started CBTI, I gave myself a good room, because when I was a great sleeper, I used to sleep for like 8 hours, so I started with 7 hours. And by the time bedtime came, I mean, my sleep drive was so strong that I didn't have enough energy for my racing thoughts, if that makes sense.
Right, right, right.
I still had racing thoughts, but they were just much more calmer, and they were just a little bit more, lower. Uh, I don't know if that could explain, if that makes sense to some people, but I was just too tired to think, because before I was just so hyper aroused, and my hyperarousal was much more stronger, than my sleep drive. So when my sleep drive was a little bit more, a little bit stronger than my hyperarousal, it kind of gave it a little bit of head start, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And just to kind of comment on that, as you know, I'm sure you're very, very aware of this, having seen like all my videos. Where I started was, my thinking was very much initially that you have to build a really strong sleep drive that kind of overpowers your anxiety and hyperarousal, and then you sleep, and then you feel less anxious, etc. Over time, I've become much more in the thinking that education is really the thing, because when you understand, you become less hyper aroused. But all that said, I do believe it. Yes, if you do,
Mm-hmm.
if you do limit your time in bed and you are a little bit more sleepy, yes, it is harder to form those anxiety provoking thoughts. So yeah, I think it
Mm-hmm.
makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, like I was watching, because in your early videos I could tell, from watching all your videos, that you are more CBTI based, but now you're kind of like together with kind of like acceptance as well. Like, so it's kind of like mixed in together, which I think it's like the perfect foundation. But I do believe that CBTI, especially for those sleepers that have like the yo-yo, type of sleep, that would be so helpful, because as a lot of the viewers here know, that racing thoughts are like so a big part of why we have insomnia, and I heard from like not only not only you, but Martin Reed and
Yep.
Michael, that CBTI is not going to fix everything. Not CBTI, but sleep restriction is not going to fix everything, but it's a good starting point, especially for those people that have a good night and then a bad night and then a good night and then a bad night.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you. I think especially in the beginning, when you're in that kind of complete chaotic yo-yo phase, like, a lot of people actually need pretty strict kind of like rules, if not, or whatnot. But I think, for everyone that's tuning in here, I think your approach is the best one, where you don't do like, if you had done like kind of like that traditional strict CBTI, where if somebody said like, oh, you got to spend 5 hours in bed, it is so anxiety provoking that it can backfire.
Mhm.
So I think what you
Mhm.
did is the best. Do like a little bit of restriction, not too crazy.
Mhm. Yeah, and I was also practicing stimulus control as well, because it's a part of CBTI, of course. But stimulus control was a little bit it was a little bit more upsetting for me, because for me, I didn't at that time. I'm not a like huge reader, I like reading, but I'm not like a huge like love books. I like watching TV more than I love reading books. If I want to read a book, it has to be a book that I'm really interested.
Yep.
Um, but stimulus control was a little bit more difficult for me because, excuse me, I used to get up and I used to look around me, and I used to put more focus in the fact that I was the only one awake,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it just emphasized the fact that I'm the only one awake because I have insomnia, if that makes sense,
Exactly.
you know? And since I didn't like reading, and it's too difficult to watch TV or watch my phone, look at my phone, because of the time, obviously I could see the time. It was much more difficult, and that's when I asked you that question, what do you think about this, because I have such a hard time, of of course it's not pleasant to stay in bed and stay angry and agitated and anxious, but it's also not good to get up, for me, from my experience, to get up and just, if your mind goes there where you're like, I'm up because I'm the only one awake, and if that doesn't make you feel any better as well, then I suggest, the tips you gave me, which was, in which I implemented in my, my life, or, when I go to bed. If you're there and you're agitated, like, um, take yourself to a point, like, mentally, where things that you enjoy, or that one time that you went to this place, or people that you love, or the good times, um, and try to think of pleasant thoughts. I know it's hard sometimes, but once you practice that more and more and more, you get to a point where you're accepting, right? It's becoming less of an effort because you're thinking about enjoyable thoughts, and you're relaxing, you're getting more relaxed, and once you get more relaxed, and you fall asleep. And that worked for me tremendously.
Yeah, super glad to hear that. And this is something that Michael talks a lot about, and I really picked up from him, is that you don't have to like leave the bed or do anything in particular. You can just yeah, use your
Yeah,
mind, and it goes
yeah,
in your mind, right?
yeah. And I hope, hopefully, to all the viewers here, I don't sound repetitive, but to me, like, for me, I've learned everything from you, so this is a success story from you, so I hope it doesn't, I don't sound too repetitive, but like, I am a person that you can, to hear, and for you to be like, yes, she got to a better place of sleep, by listening to, Daniel, and to listening to his videos and learning more. And a lot of people can too, so that's kind of where I want to like reaffirm that thought, that yes, I may sound repetitive because I'm learning from you, and because most of my learning is from you. So I just hope this really helps.
I think it absolutely does. Even though you recognize some of my teaching and what you say, it's contextualized, and you add kind of little details and your own thoughts. So it's super helpful. And I know that everyone who's listening here, although my teaching, as you know, is always about like, just focus on how you feel and how
Mm-hmm.
how you do, like, don't focus on like hours of sleep. But that said, everybody's also so wants to hear that. So take us from like, okay, where things were 5 months ago, to like, what's your sleep like now?
Well, my sleep now is, it's so weird to say this, but sometimes, how I say, this is where I'm in a spot where it's kind of tricky, because I feel like it's too good to be true. You know what I mean? I kind of have that feeling,
Yeah.
because I was this close to writing you, Daniel, this is a success story. I'm a success story, and I think I am a success story, because at the end of the day, I have education for the rest of my life. If something, I sleep fine. I sleep fine. I sleep good. I sleep, you know, I'm still in a point where I could get a little bit anxious, when I'm kind of struggling, but I always have my education to that I can go back, that I can learn, and that I can take back, and to implement in those feelings. Um, like, for example, if I have a negative feeling, okay, I have that feeling. It's either I replace it with a positive feeling, or I just hear that feeling, or I just hear that my mind talking to me, and I accept it. Before, I used to just try to push it out of the way, or I used to tell my mind, don't think about those thoughts, but now I've come to a place of more acceptance. But my sleep is good, you know it's not great, but it's good. I hadn't had a sleepless night, I remember, probably in almost 5 months since I found you. You know, ever since I found you, it kind of been like a ladder going up, you know, and I'm so happy and I'm so grateful. And it's just kind of like, wow, I can't believe I'm in this place, because how I said, when I first got insomnia, I know it seems so dark and lonely, you know, and I struggled so much, even with my family members, you know, because sometimes you that energy, everybody could see it, you know.
Yeah.
Like my husband, he'd be like, oh, you know, he can't sleep again, and you know, it used to affect him as well, you know.
Yeah.
um and now it's just like I'm I don't think I have insomnia anymore, to be honest with you. I really don't, because I sleep all the time. I do struggle sleeping once in a while, but everybody does, right?
Exactly.
When there's a stressor or something happening, it's very normal for us not to sleep. So, but for us that we've had insomnia in the past, it's a little bit more tricky, you know, because we have that, you know, that in mind. Oh, remember that time, you know, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I try to replace those thoughts, you know, with positive thoughts. And and like how, I don't know who said this a long time ago, or in one of your videos, Martin Reed, or you or Michael, I don't know, if you know, if you can overthink, if you're an overthinker, you know, when it comes to insomnia or something negative, we can overthink the positive thoughts as well, you know what I mean? Kind of like overthink them and tell yourself, you know, hey, remember that day that I slept just fine, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Remember, you know, that good stretch, you know, that I slept well. And, you know, overthink those thoughts, you know, and I think that's going to get us in a better place mentally, you know, if we put a little bit more positivity in our thoughts, you know, and replace those with, you know.
100%. I think I might have said something like that, but where I really picked up on that particular one was you know, Sasha Stevens, her book, The Effortless Sleep Method. She talks a lot about that. He's like, you're obsessing so much about how you can't sleep. Well, guess what? Just when you do sleep well or something good happens, like obsess about that. You know, she talks a lot
Yeah.
about that. So very
Yeah,
good.
for sure.
And I want to, you know, one thing for everyone listening here, I want to say is like, take note of how, you know, when I ask you, Malena, how you're doing, you're just saying, I'm sleeping fine, I'm sleeping good, I'm not too worried, etc. You're not saying, now I sleep 7.5 hours every night, you know, and I
Hmm.
always want to point that out, that for people who do well, that is so much because you're no longer tracking, you know, you're no longer keeping
Hmm.
track. So
Hmm.
I always want to point that one out.
Yes. You know, you know, you have to like kind of, you know, also every little good positive thing that happens, you know, during your journey, you know, kind of overthink those thoughts. And you know, just like when I went camping, you know, I used to be like, you know, sleep restriction always at 7 hour window, and I just told myself, you know, there has to come a point where I have to let go, you know, and
Yeah,
just let my body do what it's meant to do, you know.
yeah,
And I didn't have no, you know, thought about the time, and I slept just fine, you know, throughout those whole, you know, 3-4 days that I went camping. And um I hope a lot of people, it's such a sleep is such a now that I think about it, it's such a simple thing, you know, but our mind has created this, misunderstanding. And it's just it's a simple thing, you know, and that's that was kind of like, wow. Yeah, now I sleep good, Daniel. I don't know what else to say, you know. I'm so happy, and I'm so, you know, thankful for, you know, everything that you have done for a lot of people here. You know, you've given your time, and of course, you know, the people that need a little bit more help maybe should go, you know, and bedtime, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, sure.
But there's a lot of free resources out, you know, that if you just put a little bit of time into, you know, listening to videos, and you could get to a place of, you know, where you know so much, you know, and you can have you could have a starting point or a leading point or something to fall back on, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And yeah, you've already pointed this out, but yeah, that's one particular reason I'm so happy you're here, Malena, is that you literally, we've only interacted like this. We had one, you were a guest one time on the podcast, but otherwise it's just you've been sending questions to the channel, and that's it. So for anyone out there hearing it, you can do just like Malena, just listen to all the videos, send questions, add comments, and you can do really, really, really well.
Yes.
So if you, okay,
Yes.
this one may be a hard one, but if, you know, somebody who was in your position, and you had to say like, okay, your number one tip, like your number one insight or number one advice, what would you pick?
Can I have two instead of
Yeah,
one?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I know I'm gonna, I have two main ones, but I have like probably like two other ones. So my main one is gonna be education, because if you don't have education, you don't have a foundation. That's kind of where my mind is, you know. Just learn, keep learning, because sometimes we don't understand sleep, you know, as people, especially with people that had anxiety, because I've suffered from anxiety before, you know, and I still to this day, even talking right now, you know, I have some sort of social anxiety, you know, and probably you guys probably could hear it through my voice that sometimes like kind of get like, but it's okay, you know. But you know, having an education is the foundation to starting something, you know. Then from there, the second thing, it has to be acceptance. Acceptance is such a huge thing, you know, just accepting whatever the outcome is, especially when you're in bed. um you don't sleep, okay, you sleep, okay, you know what I mean. It's kind of like a lot of normal sleepers go through that too, and just kind of being detached from the outcome, like you have spoken to me and you have probably repeated this over and over and over and over again. There's no sleep efforts, you know. It's just detaching yourself, and once you leave that, it's just sleep comes so much easier, you know. It comes so much easier. And I'm telling you guys from a place where I was lost, you know. I was very lost and I felt very alone, and um like it's just, I know how, you know, insomnia could change somebody's life, you know what I mean. um and then another thing is doing things you enjoy before bed, no matter what it is, you know. Playing video games, watching TV, just doing something that you enjoy. Because if you're doing something that you enjoy, you don't have to think about efforts, you know. Nothing is an effort if you enjoy it, correct? So
100%.
um if you're doing things that you don't enjoy before you're going to bed, you're kind of trying to make yourself be bored, and that's kind of like an effort, you know. um so so yeah, just doing things you enjoy, you know. That's my last one. And you know, just learning. That's my biggest one.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Super, super happy. And actually, it just something just come on my mind. I remember that first time we spoke that, you know, your mom had some trouble sleeping and whatnot. Like, have you talked to her, or how's she
You know
doing?
what, you know what's funny is it's kind of like, ah let me talk to you about this. For I don't know if it's just for you know, a lot of people, but my mom is very like very old school to traditional. So she tries to you know, fix things through like teas and things like this, and no, it has to be this, trust me, it's that. And I'm like, Mom, you know, no, that's not the way to go, you know. And she was like, no, if I eat this chocolate now, I'm telling you, I'm not gonna, it could be 9 in the morning, you know.
Yeah.
If I eat this chocolate now, I'm not gonna sleep later on. I'm like, Mom, that has nothing to do, you know. And it's very I'm like, Daniel said,
Oh my gosh.
you know. um But I try to explain these things to her because when I had mentioned to you in the past, she has sleep apnea,
Yeah, yeah,
um but and I tell her, if you have any, like, if, for example, if you have a condition, right, which is sleep apnea, because there's so many things that could affect your sleep, right,
yeah,
physically. I mean, so many things. But if it's an ongoing thing, and it and if you have already went to the doctor and they tell you, oh yeah, you have this, right, and they give you something to fix that problem, or you go to rehab and you fix that problem, but it's an ongoing thing where you have kind of like this mental thing now that goes along with it, and you have these kind of like fears and associations when you go to bed, like, oh, I'm a little scared, or am I going to sleep tonight, or that's a little bit more than just your problem, correct?
you-
um
exactly.
so when she started telling me, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna sleep tonight, and she's thinking about those things since the morning, and she has her CPAP machine. I kind of like knew, like, she already built this fear, with sleep. So I try to translate to her certain things, but it's really hard to translate. Like, I'm not a great translator, but I
Mhm.
try to give her little tips here and there. And the other day she asked me for melatonin. I had it up on the closet for some reason, and I told her, Mom, you shouldn't take this, don't take this. And she was like,
Yeah.
why? I need it. And I'm like, no, you don't. um but I'm trying to find a cognitive behavioral therapist in Spanish, and it's kind of hard to find one on here. um
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm gonna do my best to try to to help her out. But I think she's getting the hang of it, because she sees my success,
Yeah. Yeah.
because before I didn't used to speak on it. Like, if I had a bad night's sleep, I didn't speak on it. I didn't want to speak on any negative thoughts,
Yeah,
or any
exactly.
negative things. But once she noticed that I started sleeping more, and then how I feel about sleep. And so she started asking me, and I said, I sleep good. And she was like, how did you do it? I'm like, Mom, it's just, I learned so much from Daniel. I don't need teas anymore. I don't need melatonin anymore. I don't need any of this, right? And
Yeah.
she said, how? And I'm like, cognitive behavioral therapy with acceptance,
Yeah.
with accepting your situation. And she's like, oh my God, I need to learn. And I'm like, yes, you do, Mom. I could teach you these certain things, but I'm not a coach, so um I'm trying to find somebody out there in Spanish for her, but I'm sure I will find somebody that would help her out.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, I think you have so much insight, Malena. I think you can totally help. But it's hard when it's their family member, because they, how it is. What's the saying? You never become a prophet in your own hometown. Like, people don't really take you seriously when it's kind of your friend or family member. But that said,
Yeah,
you have so much
yeah,
insight to share.
yeah. Even when I started reaching out to you and I found out about your channel, I didn't speak to anybody about it, not even my husband, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
And till now, I had just spoken to him about it, because he started noticing my sleep, of course, because it was affecting our marriage, because waking up all the time, not being able to sleep, it's only obvious that he could tell,
Yeah, yeah,
and oh, you've gotten better, and you've gotten better, and you've gotten better, he used to tell me,
yeah,
and
yeah.
now you're sleeping better. And he was like, what happened? And I'm like, I found Daniel. I found my coach. And then he was like, wow, I have to thank him. And I'm like, go on YouTube, you know? And my family too, my sister, and she was like, oh, you're already listening to your coach again? Everywhere I'm going, if I have time, I'm opening I'm just every opportunity that I have to learn is just so great. It's I just use it to my advantage. And now I speak about it because I'm okay. But if I had a negative thought, I didn't want to speak about it, because it's kind of like reaffirming those
Yeah,
thoughts that
yeah,
I have those feelings. So yeah, and now I'm okay to talk about my negative, past,
yeah.
because I have my education to fall back on. I'm confident in that.
100%. Wow, this is yeah, super super nice, and I particularly enjoyed hearing you talking about your mom. I mean, I'm feeling for her, of course. Everyone has trouble sleeping, but it's I'm encouraged by that conversation. And by the way, yeah, thanks so much for everything you've shared, Malena. And I'll just say this here because other people are going to tune in. I'm you're always there on the lives and like high fives and fun questions. So thanks so much for all the support.
Oh no, thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for um, all the people here.
Anytime.
It just has a huge positive impact in a lot of lives of others, and because we all know how insomnia feels, and sometimes when we go to the doctor, it's it's not like here's your guidance, towards CBTI. It's just like you're kind of left in the loops where like, is there physically something wrong with me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you go home thinking, I need to figure it out. And that's kind of like where it's upsetting, but here we are now, and I'm at such in a better place. And
Which is
thanks to you.
which is fantastic. And yeah, I think just as very quickly here, like it's I have empathy for the doctors too, because they have no clue what's going on. They were never trained. So that's a big thing that has to change. And then finally, I hear, do you have like a document or something where you've written things down? I hear you like turning pages.
Oh, I had this like little thing that I wrote where I kind of didn't want to forget, I
Yeah,
didn't want to
exactly.
forget I said them here, but I didn't want to forget. I'm like, I'm writing these things down because I don't want to forget to mention these for the viewers.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. That's exactly what I thought. And do you find did you get everything said that you want to say?
yeah, yes, yeah.
Okay.
I'm kind of taking a look here. Let me see. Yeah, I said everything that I got to
Perfect.
say.
Love it. Malena, again, thanks so much, and have a great day, and we'll stay in touch, okay?
Thank you so much, Dano. You have a good day.